Hi all, welcome and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I wanted to dissect a prison interview that was done with Chris Watts, who is currently serving multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole for the murders of his pregnant wife and two young daughters in Frederick, Colorado on August 13th of 2018. But when I started writing my notes for my video, I found that I had way too much to say about the events that occurred leading up to the interview. So if I tried to include everything in one video, it was going to be way too long. So I decided to do it in two parts. I will cover the events leading up to the prison interview in this one and dissect the interview in the next one. That way, you won't get sick of the sound of my voice, and I won't either. I realize it's not the best idea to risk bombing two videos in a row in case nobody watches because it's old news, but I need to do these for me. Before I start, I want to address an update that occurred since my last video I did regarding the discovery of Gannon Stauch's body in Florida. I expressed my opinion that I thought the prosecutors in the case may consider pursuing the death penalty if Gannon's stepmom, Letitia Stout, qualifies. Well, just a day or two later, the state of Colorado abolished the death penalty in the state. So I did all that talking for nothing. I find it annoying that lawmakers have nothing better to do during self quarantine time than to watch my YouTube videos and change the laws to make me look like an ass. But we all have to find our own sources of amusement during this time, so I get it. So, in light of these new developments, the death penalty will not come into play in the Letitia Stout case. It no longer applies. Okay, so for those of you who followed the Chris Watts case, like me, you may be wondering why I chose to do this video now, so late in the game. Truth is, I wanted to do this video shortly after I listened to the prison interview, but due to the horrific nature of this case, people were very heated, and I didn't feel the need to throw fuel on the fire until December, when I read in the news that Sherilyn Cadle's book, Letters from Christopher, was being pulled from the market because she was accused of plagiarizing the work of author Anne K. Howard, who wrote the book His Garden: Conversations with a Serial Killer. I know you're wondering how the two are related and where my twisted brain is going with this, but I will explain this connection to you in the next video, I promise. So I'm going to warn you now, this is going to be a long video. This case was horrific, and the communications after his sentencing revealed details that made it even worse. I can't do these videos without discussing the awful details that came to light. I'm not going to lie, it's going to be hard to listen to. Hell, it's hard to talk about. But I feel compelled to do it. I need to get this out of me, even if no one listens to it. I've tried to avoid it by listening to videos by psychologists, psychiatrists, criminal psychologists, etc., hoping that they nail what happened in Chris's mind and led him to kill his entire family. But I'm not finding what I'm looking for. Not that any of these people are not qualified to assess Chris, because they are. They are way more qualified than me. I'm not a psychologist, psychiatrist, criminal psychologist, or anything. I'm just a true crime YouTuber. I don't know nothing about nothing. I want to make that crystal clear. And I understand that they cannot diagnose Chris without meeting him. I get that. I'm not looking for a diagnosis. My frustration lies in the fact that the majority of the videos that I'm finding have been created by people who obviously did not follow the case closely from the beginning, maybe read about it after the fact, or they want to believe that he flew into a blinding, uncontrollable rage all of a sudden and killed his family. They omit so much detail involved, not only in Chris's behavior, but in the way that he communicates, in my opinion. The only interview that I've seen that I feel hits some of the nails right on the head was an interview done on Scott Reich's channel, Crime Talk, with author Lena Derhally, who wrote a book about the case titled My Daddy is a Hero. I understand if that title just made you cringe, but if you followed the case, you understand why she did it. There was a video online of Chris's beautiful little daughter Bella singing a song called My Daddy is a Hero in the car. It was recorded not too long before he took her life. I do believe that the title was meant to be a gut punch so we'd pay attention to her book. Brilliant, if you ask me. In the interview, Lena discusses psychopathy and narcissism needing to be viewed as spectrum disorders and how the characteristics of each are not dichotomous, meaning anybody can exhibit characteristics of each to a certain degree. She also addresses the patterns of mimicking and love bombing that are often used by psychopaths and narcissists to confuse their victims. But she's the only one I have heard address these behaviors with regard to Chris. She, also like me, does not believe that Chris suffered from a psychotic episode which he would love for everyone to believe. She says he was very methodical and planned it. I agree. It's a really good interview if you're interested in watching it. Scott Reich is an attorney, and Crime Talk is his YouTube channel. I just like to think I'm an attorney. He's an actual attorney. So now that I've griped and complained that I'm not getting my way, I've decided to create the video that I'm looking for myself because I can't be the only person out here who is still so frustrated by this case. We all wanted answers for what he did, but all we got was frustration. And please don't think it's lost on me for 1 second how much incredibly worse this has been for Chris's wife Shanann's family. If anybody's entitled to know what truly happened, it's them, not us. And maybe that's why it eats at me so bad. Those poor people have been lied to and tortured about what happened to the people they love. They may never know the truth about what happened that day, and yet they were able to find it within themselves to choose not to have him put to death, but to allow him to live. That's a life lesson in being the bigger person right there, people. I like to think I'm a good person, but I don't have an ounce of that in me. I have off the charts respect for those people, and I wish he would just finally tell them the truth. But he can't. Why? Because one, he can't implicate his girlfriend, Nicole. And two, he's having too much fun messing with their minds, with our minds. He knows what we want. He's known since day one. That's why he dances around it ever so delicately, changing his story at every turn. He loves it, and that's why I can't let go. He's rare. He acts submissive, but remains dominant the entire time. And that's what I think everyone is missing. Everyone thinks they have him pegged based on all the videos Shanann posted. Hell, I almost bought into it. He was so good. Perfect husband, wonderful father, hardworking family man, not a blemish to be found. And gosh, was he nice, wasn't he? The perfect man, right, ladies? One of the hardest hits I took in this case, and there were so many hard hits, was the video Shanann posted saying that Chris was the best thing that ever happened to her. God, that tears my heart out. But that's what she thought, isn't it? That's what everyone thought, and that's what he wanted everyone to think. We all saw what Shanann saw, what he wanted us to see, not what he really was. Now, this is where I'm going to go dark on you. I stated previously that I'm not a criminal psychologist, psychiatrist, criminologist, anything. I hold 0 degrees that would allow me to diagnose anybody, nor would I. But unfortunately, sometimes life experiences teach you more than any book or formal education ever could. If you've ever been the victim of a psychopath or a narcissist, or both, you're probably still wondering what the hell happened to you. It's mind boggling to say the least. Hopefully, if you ever found yourself in such a position, it was only with one or the other and you were able to escape the abuse quickly. But every once in a while, life will try you and trap you in a situation with both, unarmed, with no way out. I won't bore you with the details of how I know this. This video is going to be long enough already, and it's just too dark. Maybe I will someday, when I've had a hell of a lot of vino and have nothing left to lose. Anyway, I bring this up because oftentimes people who are subjected to abuse for long periods of time develop skills that help them survive and cope. Because there are so many layers involved in the manipulation and games played by narcissists and psychopaths, victims have to learn to become acutely aware of subtle changes in any situation that signal that danger is coming. And I mean subtle. Not like it is today, where it's so popular to claim that you're triggered by this or triggered by that. I guess you could say that's it on a grander scale, except narcissists and psychopaths don't necessarily have definitive triggers, nor do they require outside triggers to set them off. They trigger from within, from their own minds. So over time, their victims develop a sixth sense, so to speak, to help them recognize subtle changes in tone of voice, body language, or even the slightest thing said that lets them know that shit's about to go down. And once victims develop this ability, they practice it daily. It becomes a way of life for them. It has to. Their life depends on it, especially when physical abuse is involved. Once your brain is trained to pick up on subtleties so acutely, it becomes nearly impossible not to apply it to everyone. Not that you're always right, but your brain's always looking. I guess you could equate it to PTSD. When our soldiers go to war, they train their brains to recognize potential dangers so intensely for so long that when they return home, they can't shut it off. For people who have never fought in a war or have never been victims of abuse, that might sound abnormal. After all, they're no longer in danger, so they should go back to life as they knew it, but they can't. Their brains function differently now, and everything is now filtered through it differently. What I'm trying to say here is that sometimes street smarts trump book smarts. It's just the way it is. And even the best psychologists and psychiatrists can miss signs and signals that are highly recognizable to an abuse survivor because they never had to get down in the dirt and experience it firsthand. They're fortunate enough to know what they've read and studied, but they have no idea what it's really like to live it. And that is where my frustration lies. In my opinion, Chris Watts hasn't been diagnosed yet because he's an enigma. They can't figure him out. He's unique, rare, not in a way that he made it look like he was a great guy who just snapped one day, but in the way that he was playing the game the entire time, knowing that no one noticed. Come on, if you studied the case, you had to have seen that by now. And you can call bullshit all you want, but now that we have the benefit of hindsight, he was throwing out red flags the whole time. The reason why this case received so much media attention was because Shanann posted their entire lives on Facebook. Once she and the girls went missing, we could go right to her Facebook page and watch her video after video about their family, work, and lives. We knew everything. Well, almost. We spent hours forming a bond with Shanann and falling in love with her girls. That's why the nation was captivated by their story, because we felt we knew them and it was personal. Okay, back to my point. I'm just going to say it. This is just my opinion, but the professionals who have done videos on this case kick my ass in education and can probably run circles around me. But they missed so much. I picked up so much on Shanann's videos with Chris that has not been talked about or evaluated, or even worse, has been dismissed and explained away. It has been so frustrating having something screaming in my face that no one else can see. Or maybe you did, and you understand where I'm coming from. Chris Watts is a monster. What he did to his family was incomprehensible. His games of torture and manipulation have been an absolute nightmare. Not to mention what I believe he did to Sherilyn Cadle, causing her to plagiarize the works of another author because she was caving under the pressure of releasing her book on time. He deserves everything he got and more. I shouldn't have to tell you that I in no way, shape, or form condone what he did. Truth? I think he deserves to be put in a room alone with Frankie Rusak, Shanann's brother, and Frankie should be allowed to sentence him. Harsh? No way. She was pregnant, and she and those babies deserve to live. Now that I've made it clear how I feel about Chris Watts, I'm going to turn the table on you and tell you that I wish he never acted on what was happening in his brain. I wish we could have known how rare he was and we could have somehow studied him. I don't know, maybe they still can. See, to someone like me, and maybe you too, the way his brain works is so intriguing. In a warped, not okay kind of way, it's almost beautiful. Don't click off, hear me out. I'm going somewhere with this, okay? Think about it. Go to what I said about dominant and submissive behavior. People usually fall into either one category or the other, don't they? Sure, you can flip flop depending on the situation you're in, but it's still one or the other, not both. And yes, you can have a dominant personality and still act submissive in situations, but can you live like that? Can you pull it off so well for the majority of your lifetime that even your parents and wife don't suspect a thing? Think about how hard that would be. Constantly suppressing your true self so no one ever sees who you really are inside. And wouldn't it make more sense for a submissive personality to try to become more dominant rather than the other way around? Because what is the reward for submitting once you've dominated? Is there one? If you are screaming covert narcissism at your screen right now, I hate to disappoint you, but I disagree. Granted, I didn't know Chris, but judging from all his behavior that we witnessed from the videos to his jailhouse interview, I've only seen one distinct characteristic of covert narcissism that he has displayed throughout all of this, and that is a lack of empathy for the feelings or situations of other people. You may disagree, but that is my opinion, and it is my YouTube channel, so there. And if it was just a simple case of covert narcissism, he would have been diagnosed by now, but he hasn't been because there's so much more to him. If I asked you when you noticed him display a lack of empathy for others, I bet you'd tell me right after the murders, because what we saw in the videos from before was a loving, attentive husband and father. Some of you might say after Shanann and the girls went missing. I say it was way before. Let's start with Shanann's claims about her pregnancy. She said that it was Chris's idea to have another baby because he wanted to try for a boy. She said she agreed because she wanted to give him a son. Then we saw the pregnancy reveal video. She was so happy to tell him. But did you catch the look on his face? Shocked? No. Pissed. Did you see him grit his teeth and fake a smile? He was so obvious. But he knew he was on camera, didn't he? So he recovered quickly and acted surprised. Bet it didn't even faze you when he tried to control the situation by asking Shanann if two pink lines meant it was a girl. As if he doesn't know how a pregnancy test works, even though he already has two children. Adorable. And everyone on Facebook congratulated them and offered them well wishes. No one talks about that video and his reaction. Why? Because he must have been shocked, and that's why he looked like he did. My reaction to that video? Holy hell, he is not happy about this pregnancy. It just flashed right across his face. Either she's lying about him wanting the pregnancy, or he changed his mind and she went through with it anyway. Either way, it wasn't good. Then there was the affair with Nicole Kessinger, my favorite person. How long before he murdered his pregnant wife did he start a relationship with Nicole? A hot and heavy one, according to them. What, 2 months? Did he think his pregnant wife would be happy about that? Oh my God, my brain is screaming Scott Peterson at me. But I will stay focused. I can do this. I mean, after all, she is having the baby because he wanted it, right? And didn't Shanann tell her friends how great their marriage was and how Chris couldn't keep his hands off her all the way up until she left to visit her family in North Carolina just 5 weeks before her murder? Not that I'm taking up for Nicole or anything, because, I think she should fry for her part in this. But did he think she'd be happy that he's sleeping with Shanann the whole time he's telling her that they're separated and that he sleeps in the basement? How about the fact that he never told Nicole that Shanann was pregnant? Yes, I know she knew because Facebook, but both she and Chris told the police that Chris never told her. Here, poor Nicole is gearing up for a future with Chris to the point where she's shopping for bridal gowns online and looking up how much money Amber Fry made on her book deal after the Scott Peterson case, because, of course, Amber was Scott's girlfriend and Scott murdered his pregnant wife. And the whole time, she has no clue that Chris is still happily married and sleeping with his pregnant wife. Because Chris would never do that. He's such a nice guy. Aw. And then there's always the fact that he was so happy that she took the girls and left town for 5 weeks so he could live the single life and carry on a hot and heavy affair with Nicole that he never called his pregnant wife to check on her or the kids or to see how her pregnancy was going. But he did answer when Shanann called, even if he was at Nicole's house, just so he could lie to her and tell her that he was sleeping all day or that he worked late. Now, you and I both know that Nicole did not like that one bit. That was when she laid the smackdown. She said she didn't feel like she was number one in Chris's life. She said she wanted to be with him so she could give him the son he always wanted. And if he felt that he needed to cater to Shanann, that they should just end their relationship. Oh no, poor Chris. Whatever will he do? And the whole time, Shanann wonders why Chris never calls and why he doesn't pick up most of her calls. She's buying his lies about where he is and what he's doing. Why? Because Chris is a great guy and he would never cheat on her. What did she tell her friend that asked her if she thought Chris was cheating on her? She said, not possible. He doesn't have game. He doesn't have game. I bet Nicole would disagree with that. But she was his wife, and hey, who am I to judge? I'm not even married. I'm divorced, so. All right, time to call it. I'd bet that this is the point in time when Chris decided the fate of his family. I know, I just made all of you blind rage believers angry. But I have to. It's time. See, up until now, Chris had control of the situation. Shanann thought they were happily married, and Nicole thought he was headed for divorce. Everyone was happy. Nicole found her sweet, wonderful, perfect soulmate to spend the rest of her life with, and Shanann was secure in her marriage, knowing that Chris would never cheat because he didn't have game. It was beautiful. Both women thought they had control of their relationships, while Chris was always the one in control. Until the ultimatum. I mean, really, what was the guy going to do? Nicole flexed on him because she thought she dominated the relationship, and he would submit to her. After all, she thought he was divorcing Shanann and they were going to be together, and he loved her. He told her that many times. We also have the evidence from his computer that he searched how long you should date someone before you tell him you love them. So I'm sure they were well within the recommended time range for this to take place. Once he was confronted with the fact that he needed to either dominate Shanann and put her in her place, or risk losing the woman he loved, he chose neither. He chose to submit to Nicole to regain control and to eliminate the problem of pregnant Shanann and the two children altogether. That was the only way he could win. Because he couldn't go through a divorce. My God, he would lose all control. Shanann may get custody of the kids. He would be ordered to pay child and maybe even spousal support. She might get the house and everything in it. Oh, hell no. He would have no control over what happened to him. And because Shanann thought he was such a pushover, she could take everything. Because Chris was too nice to fight her. How would he be able to move forward with Nicole with no money, no house, and a judge deciding whether he gets to see his kids or not? He wasn't having that. He needed to regain control over that situation and fast. He was left with no choice. They forced his hand, and he would have to reveal his dominance over Shanann, but just once, behind closed doors, so no one else would see and no one else would believe it. Because that just wasn't Chris. He was a great guy. He was the perfect husband and a wonderful father. He would never do something like that. And the best part, she would never see it coming. He wins all the way around. But he did mess with her for a bit before he killed her, didn't he? You know, just for fun. How long before they went missing did Shanann discover the life-size doll covered in a shroud on the couch when she texted Chris saying she didn't know what to make of it? And no, they never proved that the girls did that. How am I so sure? Because as soon as Chris told police that he killed Shanann because she killed the girls, that was the first thing his dad brought up to the police. They wanted the police to believe that Shanann did it, not Chris. And we all remember Nutgate, right? The big fight Shanann had with Chris's parents at their house, where his mom hid nuts out in the open even though she knew that Cece was highly allergic. Yeah, when she told Chris about it, he didn't seem to care too much, and certainly didn't side with Shanann on the issue. Even after how hard she stressed, he knew that his own daughter could die if she was even exposed to nuts. He didn't care. What about the fact that she asked him to Uber to the airport so he wouldn't leave her new car at the airport parking lot for a week because they couldn't afford to pay for it? So what does he do? He drove her car to the airport, left it in the airport parking lot, and made sure he told her he did to cause a fight as soon as he got to North Carolina. And how long was he in North Carolina before he started drugging her to make her lose the baby? One day? Yeah, I think it was one day. And how many times did he drug her? But she never suspected anything. It must have just been pregnancy sickness that started as soon as Chris arrived. She did tell her friends how cold and disconnected he had become, though. Even her own family noticed that Chris didn't care that Shanann was sick, and he didn't take care of her at all. How about the fact that she begged him to help her save their marriage, and he promised her that he loved her and that everything would be okay, right before he told her that he didn't want the baby that she was carrying? And last but not least, how about the intense conversation they had when they got back to Colorado, where Chris promised that they would go away together to work on their marriage just as soon as she returned from her business trip to Arizona, knowing full well that she wouldn't be alive to take that trip, because as soon as she returned from Arizona, he was going to kill her. But nobody would believe it. Not Chris. He's a great guy. So they're having some marital problems. Who doesn't? And yes, he does come off awfully dumb that he can't follow simple instructions like Uber to the airport. But that's just Chris. Hell, Shanann told us that in her videos. How often did we watch her order him around in her videos while he jumped through hoop after hoop to look like the perfect husband on camera? She was always rolling her eyes and making comments about how she had to tell him how to do everything. She almost came off as the dominant one, didn't she? And I believe she thought she was. But he knew otherwise. It was the subtle facial changes, the delayed smiles, the moments of awkward silence, and the breathing through his clenched teeth that I saw in those videos that screamed that he was trying so hard to stay submissive when his natural state was to dominate. Disagree with me? Then take it from Shanann's own words. How did they meet? On Facebook. Was she interested? No. Did Chris pursue her anyway? Yup. How did he win her over? He love bombed her. She was suffering from lupus. She was sick and vulnerable. The perfect target. She told us how Chris went to her and never left her side. She even bragged about how he let her sleep on him for hours, even though he needed to use the bathroom. He made her feel wanted. He made her feel loved, and she needed that. She said he never left her side and even took her to her colonoscopy, and she laughed about how romantic that was. He pursued her relentlessly until she gave in, and then he helped turn his family against her, to the point that they felt sorry for him and refused to attend their wedding. But he was okay with that, because that's just how he wanted it. He was isolating her from his family, so she never influenced his relationship with them. Next, he isolated her from her family by taking her to Colorado and convincing her to move there because it would be good for her health. So she sold her home in North Carolina and moved to Colorado with Chris for her own good. And remember, these are only the things we know. We don't know everything he did to her. She didn't even know. By the time she started to suspect anything, she was already leaving Arizona to fly home to her death. I won't speculate about what I think happened that night when she arrived home because we'll never know. But I can guarantee you, though, is that it isn't one of the stories that he told. He had no reason to come clean. Who was ever going to know the difference? He was the only surviving witness to what happened in that house that night. Unless, of course, you count his girlfriend Nicole, who swears up and down that she was nowhere near Chris's home when the murders occurred, even though her phone pinged in Frederick, Colorado, right around the time of the murders. But far be it from me to falsely accuse anybody. I'm already in enough hot water with Gannon Stock's stepmom. I need to learn to keep my mouth shut before I'm flying all over the country apologizing to everybody. But wait, Nicole's in Colorado too, with Gannon's stepmom. My brain, puzzle pieces coming together. Snap, snap. Two birds, one stone. Game on. No, I won't do that to you now. This video's long enough. I'll tear into her in my next one. It'll give me something to look forward to. And yes, I will let you know what I believe Chris did to author Sherilyn Cadle in my next video too. What I know he did to her. Think I don't know what I'm talking about? Let me give you some things to think about. If you did not see the first media interviews Chris did in front of his home, they're available online to watch. If you already watched them, then you need to do it again after this video. Why? Because if you're lucky and had no clue what to look for, you didn't see them. You saw what he wanted you to see. And it worked, didn't it? The majority of the people on the internet saw a nervous, worried, scared husband and father who just wanted his family home. He played it so well that people were actually excusing his smiles during the interview as nervous laughter. Poor guy. Police are searching his house, and the media's in his face, and all he can think of is where his family is. Of course he's nervous. I won't bore you with everything I saw. I will just point out the obvious. Start with the porch video. He maintains great eye contact, doesn't he? He's not nervous, not out of breath, not tripping over his words. He's very calm and emotionless. He tells the interviewer that police are on point and they have canine units going through the house now, and he hopes they pick up a scent. Then you hear the dog start barking. Did he flinch at all? Did his breathing change? Did he react at all? No. He explains what happened when he was called home from work the day of the murders because police were at his house. He said he walked into the house and nothing was there. Not his family wasn't there, but nothing was there. He's already dehumanized them in his mind. but he did that before he even murdered them. Then he corrects it very quickly by saying, I mean, she wasn't here. The kids weren't here. Then he talks about how he hoped that they were just going to come running in the door that night to, what did he say? Barrel rush him? Interesting, considering his two beautiful little girls were each found at the bottom of an oil barrel, or tank, whatever you want to call it, on one of his oil sites he works at. I'm reaching? Don't even try it. But I will give him that he probably missed them. I mean, he did tell the interviewer that when he shared that he sure missed them, he told them about how when they were eating dinner, he missed telling them that if they didn't finish their dinner, that they couldn't have dessert. That would be the one thing you'd miss, punishing them. But he did get the last laugh when he dealt them their final punishment, didn't he? And he laughs. He can't even contain it. Then he says that it was tearing him apart that night that they weren't there, while he's shaking his head no. And he laughs again. Right after, he says that last night was horrible and I couldn't do it. Poor Chris, he's so nervous. Then he says he just wants them all to come home and literally has to force his lips shut to keep from laughing again. And notice his defensive body language. Arms crossed in front of him to form a barrier between him and the interviewer, while he rocks back and forth to comfort himself because he doesn't want to have to go through this. Again, more laughing while he says he wants them back. He knows they're not coming back. Then my absolute favorite part, he's asked if Shanann could watch the interview, what he would say to her. And just like the perfect husband and father he is, he responds by saying that he wants them back, and if anyone has them, to please bring them home. Because, he says, he needs to see them, and he closes his eyes while he says it. God, it was beautiful. Everything he admitted in that interview without admitting a thing. He was screaming his guilt, and I called it the moment I saw it. Think I read too much into things? Fine. I'll give you a no-brainer. Watch the second interview he did on his driveway. Again, no emotion. Then the camera woman jumps in and asks him a question, which I think was brilliant. And I think she did it to throw him off his game. She starts to ask a question about his wife, then she cuts off and asks him where he got his shirt. Instead of looking her like the dumbass she is and asking why she cares about his shirt when his family's missing, he immediately breaks defensive position and starts talking about how much he likes his shirt. Oh, thank God. Something I'd rather talk about. Arms down, relaxed, hands in his pockets. Finally, some relief. And just when he thought it was safe to go back in the water, that damn interviewer smacks him with, tell us about your little girls. And how does he react? He resumes the defensive position immediately because he's being attacked again. It don't get any better than that, people. I mean, who needs Netflix when you've got interviews like these? And I know you just solved the mystery of why I don't have a boyfriend. Not very nice, but fair. I'll give it to you. But don't try to tell me you're not intrigued at this point. This was just the beginning of his mind games that we witnessed as he played them out. There were so many more to come, but that's for my next video. If you stuck with me to this point, thank you. I really appreciate your time. Seriously, go and watch the videos and you'll see it all for yourself. See it how I saw it, and then tell me I'm wrong, because I'm not. And finally, if you're an abuse survivor, we are one. And if you don't listen to anything else I said in this video, listen to this. It was not your fault. You did not deserve it. You are loved and you matter. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. You matter to me, and I appreciate you more than you will ever know. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on my next video.